Hey everybody, this is Tracy here for another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we're here to recap Being Mary Jane Season 4, Episode 4, which was titled Getting School. So on this episode, we have Mary Jane, and there is a viral video that's going around the internet of a father beating his son after he catches him wearing a kilt. I think he had worn the kilt to school. And then we have Mary Jane and Cara trying to figure out what Justin's real angle is now that he's been assigned as Mary Jane's senior producer. And then we have Cara and Orlando, the baseball player, and there seems to be trouble in the bedroom. So let's go ahead and get started. So the show opens up and the team is in the story meeting. Remember, where everybody gathers and they pitch their ideas for storylines. And so Mary Jane pitches the idea about the son and, you know, the boy that was wearing the kilt and the father, you know, beating him up about it. And so Rhonda and Justin immediately say that they don't think it's a good idea, you know, especially following the fiasco with Cardi B. But Mary Jane really wants to do it. But eventually Garrett sides with Rhonda and Justin and tell her, you know, go find another story to do. So after the meeting, Justin pulls Mary Jane aside and lets her know that he's been assigned her senior producer. And so Mary Jane is like, why? You know, why would you even want to go there? And so he tells her that it was Garrett's decision and he hasn't decided whether it was punishment, you know, for the Cardi B interview, or if, you know, it was a reward because, you know, it turned out really great in the end, or if they just need someone to babysit Mary Jane. So then later on we have Mary Jane and she's in a room. I know she might have been in her office, but basically she was recording a story for the internet, and the car comes in, you know, and asks her what she's doing. And so she says, well, they said that I couldn't do the story on air, but since I'm the web correspondent, you know, I need to have content for the web, so I'm going to run with the story and hopefully, you know, it'll get the boy to come in. So the story garnered 2 million, I think 2 million hits after she put it out there. And so she's with Justin, and Justin is like, you know, why did you do that? And then Mary Jane's like, but we got the numbers. Now we just need to get the boy in to do the interview. But Justin's still not feeling it. So they end up in Garrett's office and he's watching a baseball game. And so Justin goes around, you know, and him and Garrett are pretty much ignoring Mary Jane as they're talking about this game that's on the internet. I think Mary Jane brought up about, you know, how she got the 2 million hits. And, you know, long story short, Garrett decides to let her move forward with the story. But he lets Mary Jane and Justin know that the next time they have a disagreement about a story, that they need to work it out amongst themselves, that he's not going to play mediator between the two of them. So then we have Mary Jane, and she goes to the house of the boy that was being beat in the video, and she's like banging on the door. She goes back and gets in her car. She goes back to the door, but nobody ever comes to the door. And I think a lady can be heard yelling, saying, you know, get away from here. We're not doing any interviews. So now she's trying to figure out how in the world is she going to get this kid to come on air and do the interview. So her idea is there's a rapper named D Razor, and he is the one that actually fashioned the kilt, you know, the whole, I guess like unisex clothing, where, you know, non-gender specific clothing, I guess you would call it. And that's where the boy had gotten the kilt from. So she figured if she gets the rapper on the show and get the rapper to kind of like side with the boy, and that it's okay for boys to wear skirts, and that the dad was wrong for attacking him, that maybe that will bring the kid and his dad out, you know, of hiding and get them to do the interview. So Mary Jane, Lee, Cara, and the little brother, which I finally figured out his name is PJ. Now I got to figure out what PJ stands for, because isn't the other brother named Patrick? Yeah, so now I got to find out what the P and the PJ stands for. So anyway, they're at Cara's, and Mary Jane is cooking dinner, you know, because she's still in the hotel, so she doesn't have a kitchen. And so Cara lets Mary Jane know that she's really happy for her and Lee, and you guys know Lee is Mr. London. And so Mary Jane, you know, asks Cara about Orlando, and then Cara is like, you know, it's just business, you know, just nothing going on there. And then she lets Mary Jane know that Orlando is horrible in bed, to which Mary Jane says, well, girl, don't just throw him out like that. Try and train him. But Cara says she's too old for that. She ain't got time to be teaching no grown man how to make love to her. So later that night, when they get back to Mary Jane's hotel room, she's surprised to learn that Mr. London wears a kilt also. He's asking her about the story that she's doing. And so the two of them, get engrossed into this conversation, because now Mary Jane is raising her eyebrow again. So, he's already kind of, on thin ice with having the whole, 2 kids and everything. So Lee basically says that, he doesn't see anything wrong with the man wearing a kilt, that people need to get over these gender separation type things. And then Mary Jane notices that he's sitting there with his legs crossed. And so she's like, you're kind of feminine, and I'm, not really sure about this. And so then she starts telling him about, the differences in how men sit. And I was so with Mary Jane on this, because, you have guys that sit with their legs wide open, which I think is just so sexy to me. I know a lot of women don't like it. And I remember there was an argument on Facebook once where there was a video where the guy was sitting with his legs spread open, and the lady needed to sit down, and they were saying, like, if he had closed his legs, it would have been enough room for her to sit down. And in that case, I agree. But I mean, just walking into a room and just seeing a man in a suit, and he got that little spread thing going on, I think that is so sexy. And then she talk about men that sit with their leg, like the ankle, the leg is crossed over the other leg, but it's just basically like the ankle resting on the knee area. And so she said that's kind of nice, and I agree with that. She said, but when a man crosses his legs like that, that's such a turn off, and that's a turn off for me too. And I know when I'm watching tennis, and Justin Gibbelstall is good for this. He sits there kind of like turned sideways with his legs crossed, and I just be like, ugh. But anyway, Lee lets Mary Jane know that she's too sensitive and that he's all man. So then it's the following morning, and Cara's on the phone talking to her sons, and she lets them know that, she knows Orlando. And so the kids say they can't wait to come to New York and meet him. So then Orlando's in the background, and he's putting his clothes back on, and then he starts, getting kind of touchy-feely with Cara. And Cara's like, we're not even going there. Like, you done already pissed me off the night before, ramming into me like a damn bull or something. She said, but no, you're not doing it. And so then, he's like, well, what's wrong, And so she finally, starts thinking about what Mary Jane had said the night before, and decides to go ahead and have the talk with him. And so it was a very awkward moment, because it's like, how do you tell a man that, he's not satisfying you sexually and not hurt his feelings? So Cara can tell that she's hurt his feelings. So she had a half of a peach, and the pit was still inside the peach. And so she takes the peach, and she, after she's explained to him, what it is that she desires, she tells him that she wants him to get the pit out of the peach using only his tongue. He can't use his teeth or anything. So I was like, Lord have mercy, how is this gonna work out? But of course, we didn't get to see him working the tongue on the peach. So later that day in the office, Cara decides to confront Justin, regarding Mary Jane, like, why are you pushing to be the producer for her stories? And, you better not be trying to hurt Mary Jane. And so she lets him know that his charm game isn't working on her. So, he better be careful. And so Justin tells Cara that the secret to his success is that he works harder than everybody else. And then he goes for the jugular by letting Cara know that because she's a single mom, that, she can't give her heart, or work as hard as he do, because she has to take time to go and take care of her kids, which I thought was a pretty low blow, Mr. Justin. So Mary Jane and Lee go to have dinner with PJ and the lady who he says is his mentor and is helping him get into the real estate business in New York. And so, of course, Mary Jane is skeptical as she, after the introductions, she brings up the fact that the woman has bought PJ a Rolex watch, and she's like, what's that all about? And so the lady tells her that, 20 years ago that she would have screwed PJ by now, but right now she's all about those Benjamins. And then she made some comment to Mary Jane that there's two kinds of people. that there are the people who notice the Rolex and make a big deal about it, and then there's people who notice the Rolex and don't say anything. So she's basically grooming PJ to be able to get into certain inner circles, and he has to have a look and a flair and a suaveness about him to do that, and that she's willing to do whatever it takes to groom him to become what she wants him to become. So Cara and Orlando are in bed together again, and I'm thinking this really is not going to work because he's all in his feelings. Cara is just frustrated, and it's just, they're like clashing. It's Battle of the Titans at this point because, you know, like he says, he's a grown man. He's been satisfying women, you know, all his life, and Cara needs to get over it, you know, but Cara's trying to explain to him that there's a difference between a mature, seasoned woman and then the 20-year-old women that he's just having sex with who are trying to get his money. And so it really doesn't turn out well. They kind of get into it, and he decides to leave. So the next day, Cara is sitting at her desk, and Mary Jane walks up, and she's like, "Is that leftovers from the dinner I cooked like 2 nights ago?" And Cara's like, "Yeah." And she's talking about how good the food is, and she can't wait for Mary Jane to get her own place so that she can cook more. And so Mary Jane, you know, is letting Cara know that she's not feeling Lee because of he's just too metrosexual. And Cara's like, "Girl, I'm so over with you. Like, you always find something wrong with every guy that you meet that's really nice to you." But Mary Jane is like, "I like my men with some strong masculinity and some gruffness, and Lee just ain't doing it for me." And so Cara lets her know that she took her advice, and it was a total disaster because Orlando ended up calling an Uber and running out on her. And so Mary Jane has a meeting with Justin and Rhonda about her story, and they think it's a bad idea, but Mary Jane, you know, is moving forward, you know, full speed ahead. And I'm not really sure, you know, what to think about Justin and his opinion about it, because he seems really against Mary Jane doing this story, either because he doesn't want to deal with the possible sexuality implications, or because he's having some flashbacks to how his father treated him as a child. And then Rhonda was basically saying that, you know, kids are so impressionable these days, and, you know, why would you want to promote this lifestyle to them? So I don't know where this storyline is going, or if it's like previous episodes where they deal with an issue on that episode and then it never comes up again. So, you know, like I said, Mary Jane goes ahead and she does the interview with D. Razor, and he gave her the answers that she was looking for, but it didn't garner a response from the kid that was in the video. Like, he didn't come forward or contact her and say, "Hey, I'm ready to do the story," or anything. So Justin comes in, you know, and basically calls her out for not bringing the kid in for the interview. And Mary Jane, you know, is basically saying, "But they won't answer the door. They won't return my phone calls." And Justin is like, "You know, you got to do whatever you got to do to get the story that you want. You know, you got to put in the work." So Mary Jane, you know, takes the challenge and goes back to the boy's house. And there's a brief exchange, you know, takes place, and he calls her out, you know, for assuming that he's gay because he's wearing the kilt. So I guess he's not gay. He just wants to wear a skirt. I'm not sure about that. So anyway, the dad comes out and confronts Mary Jane, you know, telling her that he has to do what's best for his son, and that his son, you know, is not going to do the interview because he doesn't want him paraded around like some freak. And then when he returns home, he has to deal with the aftermath, you know, with the kids and the people in the neighborhood calling him names and picking on him. So the son uses this opportunity to finally, you know, stand up to his dad, and he basically tells his dad, you know, that he's willing to fight him, you know, to deal with this situation, and that the dad could beat him down, but it's not changing, you know, how he feels, and that he is going to go ahead and do the interview with Mary Jane. So the father's like, you know, instead of making the situation worse than it is, and I guess he was like in shock that his son actually stood up to him, you know, he turned around and just walked back in the house and closed the door. And then, of course, you know, that damn Mary Jane is standing there because all she really cares about is getting the story. She's not really caring about what happens to this boy afterwards. So we're back at Cara's, and Orlando shows up, and he comes in, and he's just like really excited, and he seems to have found his inspiration to satisfy her. And he starts telling her this story about when he first got on the mound and first did so, it was something great in his career, and how that made him feel and made him want to work harder. So he wants to give their situation another chance. And I'm just thinking to myself, Cara, you gonna mess around and make this boy fall in love with you, and you know that you really don't want him, because I still think that Cara is only using him so that she can somehow get this story about his retirement and get Mary Jane back on the air. But you know, she's giving it her all. I mean, she's in there for Mary Jane. I just hope that it doesn't backfire on her. So throughout the whole show, Mary Jane and Cara, you know, they've been watching Justin, you know, make moves in the office and schmoozing everybody and, you know, winning everybody over like he's this great, likable guy. So one of their colleagues has tickets to, it was either the Knicks or the Nets, but it was a basketball game. It was front row seats. And so she wanted Justin to go with her. So when she went over, you know, to tell Justin she had the tickets, instead of him saying, you know, he would go with her, he decided to buy the tickets from her and told her that his girlfriend was coming to town and, you know, it would be a great date for them. So when the girl, you know, went back over to tell Mary Jane and Cara what happened, they immediately said, you know what, I bet his girlfriend is a Becky with the good hair. You know, there's no way he's dating a sister. So we'll see, because I'm starting to think that Justin might be on the down low, but, you know, I'd be all over the place with my assertions and what I think is about to happen. So PJ's mentor lets him know that her daughter is coming to town and she wants him to keep an eye on her because she has some kind of internship going on. So the daughter turns out to be like a 20-year younger version of the mother. Like they look really, really, really alike. But you can tell that, you know, she's really spoiled and she's very self-absorbed. You know, she has like the red hair and perfect makeup and designer clothes and everything. But I was kind of confused because she came with a really with a girl, very masculine looking girl. So I don't know what that was all about, but PJ looked at her and I don't know if they recognized each other, knew each other, or if he just knows that she's going to be trouble. Then we head back to Cara's, and her and Orlando, you know, they're finally in sync with each other sexually, and he is just like blowing her back out and she's just like enjoying the moment. And then they get into some, I guess he was going down on her, and it was so good that she had her legs wrapped around his neck and she just wiggling and moving and then popped the boy's neck. And it's like the season opener is coming up in like a matter of weeks, and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe that this just happened. And so when Cara goes to work the next day, Garrett asks her, like, do you have any idea what happened to him? Like, what is this going to do for his season? And Cara, of course, is like, oh my God, if anybody finds out that I'm the reason that this man's neck is all messed up, like my career is going to be over. So Mary Jane, you know, she finally gets the kid in, and you know, and they said his name, and you know, I don't remember the name and I didn't write it down. And so finally he comes in for the interview, and D-Razor, the rapper, actually styled him in some of his clothes for the interview. And so he tells Mary Jane that he gets bullied a lot at school, but for every kid that bullies him, there's like 2 or 3 that stand up for him and say, you know, leave him alone, and that they understand, you know, him, you know, just want to be free to live his life any way he wants to. So afterwards, Mary Jane and Justin are talking when his very black, very Afrocentric girlfriend shows up for their date. So, you know, Mary Jane's jaw just dropped, you know, because she couldn't believe that he was dating a black woman. And then Orlando shows up and just wants to hang out with Cara, but I don't know how that's going to work, because the look on Cara's face was like, boy, I don't have time to be bothered with you on a romantic level. I just want to have sex with you and get this story from you. So this might turn into like a stalker situation. And then last we have Mary Jane and Lee, and they're watching her interview, and the conversation moves to his masculinity, and he pretty much tells her to let it go, and he swoops her up and takes her into the bedroom to show her just how much of a man he really is. So that was it for this episode of Being Mary Jane. What do you guys think is the deal with Justin? Like, do you think he's straight? Do you think he's bi? Like, what's the deal with him and his father? And also, what do you think is going to happen with Cara and Orlando now that she done pussy whooped the boy? So leave your comments below, rate the video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, take care and have a great week. Bye-bye.